Hello everyone, welcome to the new video in the series of Complete Guide to Room in Android. In this video, we will make CRUD operation of Students module. CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update and Delete. So before moving on further, let's see the initial. Before moving on further, as we have already seen that in our first lecture, that there are three primary components of Room. The first one is a room database, which contains the instance of the database, and the second one is the DAO, data access objects, which allows us to perform operations on database: create, read, update and delete. And the entity represent a single entry in our table. So we will start with this our entity, but before that, let's understand what are the required dependencies. So in our app.gradle file here, these are the few dependencies which are for view model navigation. These are the dependencies required for the if you are seeing this video and to apply that CRUD operation in our own project, so you need to add these dependencies in your project if you are using Compose. And these are dependencies required for Room. And also add KSP at the top of the file in plugin section. Mention this KSP like this, and also this serialization which requires during the navigation in Compose. As we have already completed the UI and the navigation between screens of the students module, so in the previous video, which was an optional video, and the initial code of this video contains the complete code of the previous video, which is students module UI and its navigation. So now let's understand what fields we require in our students table. So in our students table, we require these fields: ID, name, phone number, gender and address. So we will create entity for that. So in our project, here we will create a package named as data, and in that we will create another package named as entities, and in this we will create a class which would be a data class and named as student entity. And in that our first value would be ID, which would be integer, and we will make it nullable. Name, we will make all of these fields nullable. Phone number and address. And for gender, we will use integer type, which also be nullable. And we will want to make this ID auto increment, that whenever any new entry comes, then the ID would be incremented. So for that, first we will mention it as a primary key, and by default this would be auto increment. Actually here we will by default it will be auto increment, and if we make it auto generate, then it will generate a random number for that. But we will proceed with the auto increment, and on top of it we will use annotation entity, and mention the name of our table, students. And now we will create the second component, which would be the database. So here we will create a file named as AppDatabase, which would be an abstract class. So we'll mention the abstract, and this will be inherited from room database. So this will be our app database, and to get the instance of this, we will here create a companion function, which would be a static function. So we'll name it as get instance, which will return the app database instance. So room dot database builder, provide the this requires a context, class name, and name string. So we will pass the context here, app database dot class, and app database has specific name for this, and we need to pass the context to this method. So context, and with error we have here, we need to call this dot build method, which will build the instance of this database with these provided information. So now we will create the third component of our room library, which is the DAO, data access object, which contains different queries information. So actually I will need to move it into the data, and in here create the package named as DAOs, and in that we will create a interface named as StudentDao, annotate use a room annotations DAO, and in that we perform our CRUD operation here. Let's say we want to insert an item, so insert student item, so the insert annotation here. So this is the create our, and to read the information from here we will use the get all items, which will return the list of student entity, and the query we will provide the query here like select static from students, and to get a single student entry we will create another function named as get item, provide the ID of the student, and we will get the student entity, and we will make it nullable. So it might be possible that we are trying to get a student against any specific ID which doesn't exist, then in that case we will get the null. So the query for that will be select static from students where ID is equal to ID, and we want a single item only, so here we will limit this query to limit 1. And next is we want to update any student, so for that we will create a method named as update item, which will have the student entity, and we will use the update annotation here to update this. And if we want to delete any student, then for that we will create a method named as delete item, which has value, let's say value which is student entity, and use the delete annotation here. So there are two ways to delete any student. We can pass the student object, provide the student object, and we can use this delete annotation. And if we want to delete the student using a specific ID, then we need to write the SQL query for that. But currently we will make it simple and use this one. Okay, so now we will get our all students in our students listing screen. So for that, in our students package in main we have our students view model here, and here we are getting students from our app state, which contains dummy students list. So here we need to get all the students from our database. So for that we need the instance of our app database, So I will move this one. Students is equal to app database get instance, and here we need to provide the context here. So there are multiple ways to provide the context, but as right now we don't want to incorporate Dagger Hill in at this initial stage. We just only want to understand that how we can use room library. So for that we will apply some workaround for that. So here we will provide the context, but we don't want to pass the activity context in our students view model. So to get the instance of this app database, we will do it in this way. We will create a application class named as room demo app, which will inherit from application, and in that we will create a companion object and define a declare a variable here named as app database, and in on create we will create the instance of our app database dot get instance and provide the application context here. So we will have the our instance here. Now we can access our instance here directly. So room demo app dot app database dot next is actually here we need the instance of our DAO, but we miss one thing here, that we need to provide the information to the room database that for which DAOs we need, what DAO we need. So here we will create a abstract function here named as get StudentSDAO, and let's remove this one and make it just only StudentSDAO, and this will return the StudentDao, and we can call this StudentSDAO here and get all items. So we will have all items here. So before further moving, we need to do one thing in our app database, that whenever this get instance is called, we as this instance of this room database is an expensive object which contains system resources and memory in our RAM. So we need to make sure that in our app we only have one instance of this. If accidentally it will be called anywhere, so for that we will use singleton design. We will apply singleton design pattern here. So we will create a variable named as instance app database, make it nullable, and here if we will check if instance is not null, then we will return it from here, and if it is null, then we will create the instance first and then return it. Okay, and now we have our instance here, and the another point is we need to mention this room demo app, that this is the application override application class, and we need to tell the project, tell the Android system that we need to call this whenever the app starts. So in our manifest file here we need to provide that file information in the name, and now coming to our students module, and in here we are getting some error that this UI state contains the list of students model, and we are getting the students entity list. So we need to map our this list students entity list to student model list. So for that we will create some extension function here in our entities, actually in our models, and in here we will create a file named as student students extensions, and in that we will create an extension function for our student entity, and we will name it as toModel. Let's name it as toStudentModel, and this will return the student model. So in that, let's go into the student model, return student model, and here we will find the ID of this student entity. We can access it by this dot ID, and that we can also access it directly by typing the ID here. So as this would be a nullable, so we will use else operator here and provide -1 if it is null. And next is name. Because all of these are nullable, so we will use else operator with each one to provide alternate value as well. So the last one which is left is the gender. So for gender we will do it in this way that gender uses safeCall operator here, and as it contains integer value, so we have our gender enum, so we will use gender enum dot entries and pass the integer value in it, and if it is null then we will provide our default gender information and we will use the male as a default. And yeah, that's it. And now in our students view model, here we will map this entity. Let's rearrange it in a little way in this way, and in here we will map our list id dot to student model. Now we have our list which contains a student model, and we are setting that in here. So let's run our project at this stage to find out if there is any bugs. And our app have been crashed, so let's see what caused the issue. And the issue is unable to create application, does not exist. Okay, and the thing is, this is not obvious from this logs that what could be the issue, but I have missed something. And the thing is, in our app database here we need to use the database annotation here, and in that we need to provide the list of entities which we have, which representing the tables. So student entity dot class and version of this database which is 1. So now let's uninstall our previous or first one which crashed and run the app again. So here we get something else here. In our StudentSDao we are getting some error at line number 20, and which is okay, actually in get item we need to provide the integer value, and we are providing the whole object here, so we will replace it with the integer and then run it again. I have implemented it multiple times, but I am going through these errors or bugs process to provide complete picture of it when you are implementing this on yourself first time. Okay, so we get another crash here, and that thing is in our logs. If we see, we are getting some error here that cannot access database on main thread. It may potentially log the UI for a long period of time, and that's true that we don't want to log our UI to uh, hold the user at some stage to we don't want to provide bad experience to our user. So here in our students view model, we are calling this get all items method, and we are calling this on our main thread, which is causing the issue and will log the UI. So we will call it in the background thread using coroutine. So this view model already have scope to launch a coroutine. So we have view model scope here, and we can launch the coroutine like this. And in coroutine we can mention that we want to call it on IO threads, because it's an operation which we are getting data from our device storage. So here we will move this code of log and paste it in here, and now run the app again. So now at this stage our app is successfully up and running, although we are not seeing any data in here. This is because actually we don't have any data in our students table. But if our app is not crashed at this point, then it's mean that at this stage everything is implemented correctly. Now we will move to the next one. So now we want to do that whenever we provide any student's information, then student to insert the student in our database. So for that, in our add student view model, and in here we will call the insert method to insert the database the record in the database. So before that we need the instance of our DAO, so we will assign it in our private variable StudentDao room demo app dot StudentsDao app database StudentsDao. We have the StudentDao object here. Now we will call this in our method in here, save one click. Here we are calling this insert student method of our app state, so we will call our StudentDao method from here. So StudentDao dot insert item and provide the item in it, and student, as this student variable have the student model object, and this insert item requires the student entity instance. So we need to again do a mapping here. So from mapping we will create another extension function in our this file, which would be coming from this student model. So we will do student model class dot to student entity, and return the student entity from here. Provide the ID. Here we can access this student model parameters by using this dot ID, and we can also directly access it by typing the ID here, name, phone number, gender, and as gender is enum here, so we will get the ordinal value from here, which would be an integer. Okay, so we have our extension function here, and now we will create another variable named as, let's do it in this way. We will change this to student entity, and we are getting some error here. Let's comment this one, and we have uh, provide the student entity to this to insert item. But one thing which we need to remember, that we cannot perform database operation on our main thread, and again this is calling on our main thread. So how to avoid this thing to let's say if you're working on a project, and after you any new developer come on this on that project, then there should be some ways to for him to know that which thing should be done on background thread. For that there is a specific keyword we will define, which is a suspend. So making a function suspend, so that would only be called from a background thread from a suspend function, or from a coroutine scope. So we will use the suspend here, and we will be getting some error that we can only call this from a coroutine or from another suspend function. So this should be defined. All of these our DAO methods. So we will use suspend for each of these one. And now we will wrap our this method to our coroutine scope. So view model scope dot launch, and launch it on IO thread. Okay, and now run our app and test that if this thing is working as expected. So let's run it. Okay, so our app is successfully up and running. So let's insert a student here, and let's name it as Rashid Saleem. Okay, so by tapping on save, we are getting some error here. So what is the error? Okay, so we are getting some primary key constraint error here. Unique constraint field is and if we run our app at because we want to find out that at first stage when we tap on save, then why it's not get us back to our previous screen, and also we are getting this error. So let's run our app and inspect in our database that do we have any entry first. So we have the entry in our database, but it is -1. So this is the first issue that we need to tackle. So let's start with this one, and in our mapper function in students extensions, we have the extension function to convert the student model to entity. So in that, if this ID is -1, then we will assign null to this ID, so it will automatically increment the next ID based on the previous ID. If no entries exist, then the first entry would contains ID 1. So if ID is equal to -1, then we will return null. Otherwise, we will assign ID to this one. So now let's run the app and add one new student. Name it as Rashid Saleem plus 923412 and Lahore, Pakistan. Save, and that entry have been saved but haven't reflected on our this screen. But if we close our app and open it again, then still we are not able to see the entry. Let's uninstall the app and run it again, because I think this is -1 entry causing some issue here. So uninstall it and run the app again. So here, create a first student here, Rashid Saleem 9240 and number, and Lahore, Pakistan, and their student have been saved. And to see it from again, we will close and open our app and that student is not here. So let's inspect our database first. In our database, select the app, and if I again add the student here, any random number, Lahore, Pakistan, and press on save and refresh our database here and to see that do we have any entry, and there is no entry here. Okay, so let's go back to in our code and find the problem here. So in our StudentDao we have insert item, and we are doing this, and in our AddStudentViewModel, when user tab on the insert item student, everything looks good here, and into student entity we are doing this. If id is -1, then this would be null, and if it is not null, then this would be. Okay, so let's inspect, debug our code with this, and attach a debugger from here. I will choose another name here, Ishan Ali +92 Lahore, Pakistan. Tap on save, and here we have this object here. Okay, so this is good, and press F8, and this is the issue. Okay, so I have figured out the issue, that the thing which I am missing is that we are converting this student model to student entity, and at this condition id is null, and we are comparing it is with -1. So that's why this code of block is not executing. So what we will do is we will don't do the mapping here, we do the mapping at this method to provide the entity to this insert item method. So now if we run the app and add a new student here, but at this stage it's not working. What is the issue that we have here? Let's debug it again. And now tap on it again. Then at this stage id is -1, so if we press F8, then we are navigated here, and this method is called, and now right, now okay, so let's run the app again and inspect our database. Okay, so we have the entries here, but we are not navigated back to our previous screen. So the thing is, okay, yeah, because this thing have been considered in else part, so don't do anything in here. And now let's run the app again. Actually, let's uninstall the existing app and test our fresh app. So here if we run the app, insert a new student, Rashid Saleem, Press on save, and their student have been saved but not reflected here because we need the improvement in on the screen. But if we close the app and open it again, then we will be able to see our new inserted student. So if we add a new student again, press on save, and their student will be saved but again not reflected here. And if we close the app and open it again, then we will be able to see that new student. So to uh, to auto reflect this new inserted student when user navigate back to this screen, then we need to do some modification on our this screen. So here we have a student view model, and in our init block, actually in our students view model, here we have this code block which fetch the students from the database. So we need to call this method whenever user land on this screen. So this composable have different life cycles. So we will call this code of log when user land on this one. So first we will extract this code of log using Control Alt M, fetch students, and in our student screen here we will use a method named as disposable effect, provide the life cycle here, life cycle owner to this one as a key, and there is some code of block which we need to add, and this is the official documentation. We need to do it in this way. We create observer which have provide the event variable and also remove that, add that observer and remove one on dispose. So we will do the same thing here. We will register that in the lifecycle. So lifecycle owner dot lifecycle dot add observer, and in on dispose we will remove that observer, and in that specific the possible events which we have here, we will use that in when condition. Press Alt Enter to get the remaining branches, and these are the remaining branches. And on this event on resume is triggered when user land on this screen, or if this screen is already created but user is not currently seeing that, and if come back to this screen, then this event will be triggered. So we will remove the other remaining one, and else branch here in which we do nothing, and in this branch we will fetch our method. So fetch, we will currently I will make this actually create a action here because we are implementing MVI. So define an action here named as fetch students action, and in on action we will send that action, and in our students view model here on action we will press Alt Enter to add remaining branches, and in here we will call that fetch students method. Okay, and now this will work as expected. So let's run and see the behavior. Okay, so now we will add a student here, Ishan Ali. Press save, and that new student have been shown here. And if we add another student here, press save, and then that student will be reflected here. So this problem have been solved, that whenever we land on the screen, then newly reflected or newly inserted entry has been shown here. We need to work on update an existing students. Let's say if we tap on this one, and as here currently we are showing dummy student information, but we want to see this selected student information and also want to update that one. So first we will get the uh, selected student information from our database. So for that we go to our add student review model, and in here we have the student ID here, and we need to pass that in our database. So to get that against that specific ID, we want the record from our database, so we will use our StudentSDAO here dot get item and provide the student ID in it. And as this is a suspend function, so we need to ramp our this function into view model scope dot launch and dispatches.io, and we need to also modify this return by return at launch and if we are, let's do it in multiple lines, and if we receive the get the record from our database, then we will map it, because here we are seeing the error here. Let me show you the error first, that we have the student entity, and we need to map it to student model to save it in the this UI state, to update in the UI state. So to student model, and this thing has been done, and now we need to work on the update method. So in our this view model we have save on click method, and in here we are calling this update student from the app state. So we will remove this one and call StudentDao dot update item and provide the student dot to student entity. And here that's it. So let's run and see this. So now if we want tap on this this first student, and we are able to see the information here. So just write update in it and also update in the address and press on save, and we are able to see this updated information here. Same for this one. Let's say tap on this student and write update in it, up in it, and update the phone number. Let's say use 222 at the end, and update the address to, let's say, want, and tap on save, and this information have been reflected. Now the last part which have been left is to delete an existing student. So when user tab on yes, then we need to delete the student, and that deleted student should also be reflected in here. So in our add student view model, here we have a method named as delete student, and in that we have the ID of the student, and we just need to delete that student against this ID. So remove this line. So we have the StudentDao here, so delete item, and actually it requires the needs a complete instance of student entity. So what we will do is we will rename it to student, and also remove this dot id and get the complete instance here. So here we will pass this in our this method student and dot to entity, and as this is a suspend function, so we need to wrap it in our view model scope dot launch dispatches.io. And yeah, that's it for this one. So let's run and verify. Okay, so now if I tap on the first student, tap on delete icon, press yes, and their student have been deleted. So delete the second student, And this is have been created. So with this we have completed our CRUD operation on our student module: create, write, update, delete. So all four operations have been completed. So this is it for today's video. I hope this would be meaningful information for you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.